All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Fit RX. I am your host, Dr. Greg Dennis, and strangely enough, especially with a podcast titled Fit RX, I have not yet talked about any really form of exercise. We've talked about nutrition and fasting and all that kind of stuff, and so I figure it's time we talk about exercise. And so I'm going to kind of jump to the mother of all fitness, in my opinion, which is CrossFit. I recently got certified as a level 1 CrossFit trainer, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And so there I met my guest, James Hobart. He is a level 4 CrossFit trainer, which is kind of way high up in the training of CrossFit. He owns his own CrossFit box, which we'll talk about what that is. CrossFit One Nation in Boston. He is on the CrossFit seminar staff, so he goes around the country training people like myself how to coach others. And so he'll tell us kind of how he got into this and all that. So James, welcome to the show.
Greg, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Nice to see you again too.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. Okay, so I want to know kind of how you got into this, but before we do that, I want to just define, what CrossFit is. And so kind of on a basic level, if somebody just, on the street comes and asks you what's CrossFit, how would you define that?
Yeah, we have our, as we talked about at the seminar, and we'll get to that, we have our six word definition. But usually if someone pulls me aside and asks me, or at least for a while when I would go back home for family gatherings and my family knew less about what I was up to with CrossFit, when I would talk to people about what CrossFit is, I would really just say that it's a group-based fitness program, and it's meant for all levels of athlete. And the goal of the program is to really make you good at your daily life tasks. It doesn't focus really on any one specific, become as, strong as possible or for as fast as possible. It's just the goal of the program is to make you good at whatever you want to do throughout your day. And that is really how I would try and introduce it to people. Someone once said, and I really like this idea of it, that CrossFit might not be for everyone, but it can be for anyone. And that's one of my favorite parts of the program, is that I think in its applicability, it can be, you have athletes doing it who are in their 20s and they're competing in CrossFit. You have athletes like my mother, who's 60, started CrossFit at 54, and she uses it to operate better in her daily life. So, the breadth of athlete that it can be applied to is anyone really, as long as they're interested enough. So that's kind of how that's like the back of the napkin introduction that I'll give people to
Okay.
CrossFit.
Yeah. We'll get into more specifics here in a little bit, but tell me, so how did you get into this? I mean, just kind of describe your story about getting into fitness and then CrossFit, and then now going around the country teaching CrossFit.
Yeah. So for me, growing up, I was really fortunate. I lived in a really small town, Otis, Massachusetts, in the western part of the state of Massachusetts. And I think I had all of, 4 neighbors on my street. And just long story short, I had a really wonderful upbringing where I had to be outside a lot. My friends were far enough away. So it's like, if I really wanted to see them, my parents both worked, I had to get on a bike and ride there. So I was very active in my youth. I played sports all through high school. And it really wasn't until the end of high school when I realized, as much as I'd love sports, I wasn't a terribly great athlete. So I really wasn't, going to really continue on in any serious way and play sports in college. And that's when I started to get more into the gym. And that didn't really happen until end of high school. And then through that, I had a friend who was a personal trainer who had trained me a little bit when I was playing lacrosse in high school. And he, we started working out together. His name was Mike Bazillion, and he would eventually go on to open a CrossFit gym, which would actually be the first CrossFit gym that my mom would attend. But before that, my friend Mike, he and I were trained together. We were really into everything that was going on with the kettlebell scene. And through that, he stumbled on the CrossFit website And, he pulled me aside and was like, hey, we should start doing this. It's really fun. And in about 2008, after we had been training together for a couple of years, we went and attended our CrossFit Level 1 seminar out in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And through that, I just slowly became more and more involved with the program and much more involved with fitness than I ever expected. If you had asked 18-year-old me, do you have a desire to work in fitness and train people? The answer would have been like, you're crazy. It totally sideswiped me, and my appreciation of it grew just the longer I was involved with it. But that's really how I got started with it. Never saw it coming though.
Okay. So how long was it after that that you kind of advanced and got into coaching, and now you pretty much travel around the country teaching others?
So CrossFit is a fitness program. When Greg Glassman had founded it, I think really started rolling in the early 2000s. And that's when I think more people started to see it pop up on the internet, and it was becoming much more popular in the Santa Cruz, NorCal area. It was being popularized in the military and a lot of law enforcement officers. But the seminar staff, the seminar arm of it, the training department, didn't really begin until 2005. And I didn't take my level 1 course, which essentially is the 2-day course to train new trainers and coaches of all, levels and levels of interest. You could have, I went to my level 1 just because I liked CrossFit. I had no desire to coach. Now in my job as a seminar staff trainer for CrossFit, I meet people every weekend who might be like yourself, passionate and practitioners of it, and just people who are very interested in fitness and health as a part of their life. I meet people who want to be trainers, and I meet people who just like working out at home in their garage gym and wanted to learn more. So in 2008, when I took that course, I went in with the attitude of, hey, I just really like this and I want to learn more about it. I came out of that with the desire to start coaching and teaching and sharing, what I believed was that you could improve your life and the lives of others through fitness. And I wanted to share that, what I had learned in CrossFit with other people. I didn't start working with CrossFit seminar staff until really Halloween of 2010. This year was my 10th year of working with seminar staff. And I didn't really get fully involved with CrossFit seminar staff until that time in 2010. And again, I had been going to grad school in Boston. And up until that point in 2010, it really was just a part-time, I don't want to say hobby, but it really was just a part-time endeavor, coaching and being interested in fitness. And then at that time in 2010, I reached out to CrossFit Incorporated, and I applied for a position on their seminar staff training team. And from there, you go through an internship process and a long, interview process. And I was able to obtain a position on their team. And that's really where I started with working with CrossFit and working with their training department and their seminar arm of their company.
Very good. And do you travel weekly, monthly? How often do you go to?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's grown. When the seminars first started, when CrossFit first started doing seminars, they were far and few between. They either happened on one of the coasts, and they happened in big cities. I think, especially before COVID really sped up, we were doing in some weekends over 10 seminars a weekend all over the world. There had been some weekends where I believe we were close to 20 seminars, CrossFit level 1 seminars, and we have a level 2 seminar that's an in-person seminar. And we're hosting them on just about every continent other than Antarctica. Now, we have a seminar training staff of about 200 people worldwide. And in the cadre of that staff, stationed all over the globe, there's a group who are sort of like the course overseers or managers, and they're called flow masters. That's what my role is. And then we have head trainers. And at the course, as you saw, my role and my other colleagues, the flow masters, our role is just to kind of manage the weekend, make sure it flows well. And then we have head trainers who lead the breakout groups and provide some instruction through lecture. So when I first started, I traveled a lot more than I do now. And that was mainly because we hadn't fully developed as many trainers throughout the world to help put on these seminars. But now, like I said, we have over 200 trainers. We deliver courses in South America and Latin America in Spanish. We have trainers in Asia who both act as translators and delivering the course in native languages. So, without getting too much into the length of that story, I've traveled a lot. Currently with COVID, I'm traveling much less. Slightly before that, I was working about 3 to 4 seminars a month. And really it just has to do with, how many of these are really going on. There was a big need and desire for it. And growth, especially outside of the US, has been pretty consistent.
Very good. Okay. Well, let's get in a little bit deeper into CrossFit. At the seminar, you explained functional movements, which is, kind of what CrossFit is all about. So just kind of define, what functional movement is.
Yeah. So without jumping in back into the full lecture, which you sat through, our view of functional movements and the importance of them is that, one, they are something we are born to do. And I think anybody listening to this, when you get up and out of a chair, you're doing a squat. Now, in order for us to call it a squat, we go into the gym and we hold onto dumbbells or a barbell, or we squat to a box or a ball and we give it that fancy name. But a lot of these, nearly all of the movements we see inside of a CrossFit gym that fall into our repertoire are just movements that your body does naturally and that you need to do in order to navigate your daily life. Now, we specifically define functional movements by their ability to move a weight, move a load over a distance, and typically do so quickly. We see functional movements as really important because they're what allows us to have task accomplishment. And one of the analogies I really like is that if there was something on the ground, you were helping your friend move a couch, let's say, you wouldn't put your heel underneath it and try and hamstring curl the couch off the ground. You would bend over, which is what we call in the gym a deadlift, and you would pick it up. And maybe you would do some sort of clean to get it to your shoulder. But we're using these functional movements throughout our entire day. They're completely ubiquitous in everyday life. And we're using them to do all the tasks we love and need to do in order to navigate our everyday life and thrive in it. And, one of the things I really like about CrossFit is, when you can start to draw those distinctions for people, they can really start to see how important training functional movements is. And they can also start to see, I think, that it's easy to live a life where you stop practicing functional movements. I think I was talking with somebody recently about this idea where I have a feeling that, and this isn't to disparage anyone, but I have a feeling that there's a commonly held view of health that is basically, if you can get out of bed and make it to your job and make it back home, then that's like the standard of health. But when you start to look at, hey, can you get up and down from a seated position well? Can you navigate yourself up and down the stairs? Can you put your luggage away on the plane by yourself? Can you carry your groceries inside by yourself? Those are all functional movements and necessary things we believe you need to live a healthy and have a good quality of life. And the barrier of entry to doing CrossFit and improving functional movements is no more than just practicing those movements. And we don't even have to talk about loading or intensity. It's just the idea of we're just going to try them and try to do them a little better.
Okay. So contrast CrossFit's idea of more functional movements versus just more traditional weightlifting, where you're doing more just isolation exercises.
Yeah, I think in a traditional weightlifting or training sense, where they're focusing on just building a certain body part or a single joint. So for example, if you're doing a bicep curl, the real focus of that is just to work on maybe not even the function of the bicep. It could be the aesthetic of the bicep. How nice does it look? How big does it look? But it's just focusing on that single muscle. Our view is a little bit more holistic compared to that. We want to make sure, regardless of how exactly it looks, we want to make sure the body functions as best as possible. So a lot of our movements are going to include, multi-joints multi-muscles, working in a system of systems, working together to accomplish the task. So in terms of focus on isolation, that's not really our bag. That's not what we exactly focus on. And that's not to say that, working on isolation movements couldn't be useful or couldn't be something somebody wants, but our real focus is to make sure, hey, the body working as a whole to do something, that's how we're going to kind of address movement, and those are the movements that we're going to use.
Gotcha. Okay. So taking that a step further, how would you or how would CrossFit define fitness?
Yeah. So our definition for fitness is defined as work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Now, without some extra explanation, you might hear that and say like, okay, great, and just kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. It's a very specific definition, and for us, we care about it because it allows for a definition that's measurable, observable, and repeatable. But before going any further, what we're basically saying is your fitness is your ability to complete different tasks and as many different tasks as we can think of. Now, a really simple example would be this. Imagine you had someone who, for whatever reason, led a completely sedentary lifestyle. And that the most they could do is that they could get up from the couch and go to the bed and go to sleep. Let's say they are unable to navigate up and down the stairs. Let's say they're unable to go out to the car and bring their groceries in on their own. They need help getting out of chairs and off the toilet, for example. They have a very limited skill set, which they can function in their real life. We think that's a really low level of fitness. Now, we don't even have to talk about somebody who's in a gym, doing heavy barbell lifts and doing high skill gymnastics. Now imagine someone who is able to, regardless of age, take my mom, for example, she's 60 and she can bring the groceries in by herself. She lives at home with her dogs. She takes care of dogs. She walks regularly. She can get up from the ground by herself without an issue. She can put the groceries away, navigate the stairs, no problem. If she has more tasks that she can complete, we believe not only is she fitter, but she has a better quality of life. Now, we can jump in the gym and say that someone like my mom, who started training in her 50s, she's now 60, she can also do strict pull-ups. She can also hold herself upside down on her hands. She can squat with weight. We think the more tasks that she's able to complete using these functional movements, the fitter she is. And we also believe strongly that the fitter you are, the better quality of life you have. If you can apply more of the things that your body can do, more of the functional movements your body can do, you have more opportunity to just live life well. And that's been something that's really near and dear to our heart. And if you want me to dive into the specifics of that definition, I'm happy to, but I hope that outlines it in a way that's clear and just kind of really easy to digest.
Sure. So talk about, in class, you talked about the hopper and, pulling different exercises, out of that, and that the goal being to do everything in that pretty good. And that just kind of struck a chord with me. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the hopper model is really interesting. And so in CrossFit, the hopper model is this notion that you have essentially like a giant, like peanut roaster or like a bingo ball hopper, right? A bingo ball, it's something that would mix them up, and you could reach in at any time and pull out, a task, and you would pull it out at random and you'd see what the task was. Now, for us, the hopper model is a measure of an athlete's fitness. And again, I think it's really important for us to have this really broad perspective of what an athlete is. You could be an athlete of some specific sport. You could be a world-class powerlifter. You could be a world-class sprinter, marathon runner. You could be a world-class competitive CrossFit athlete. You could just be an athlete of life whose main focus is going to work, taking care of your kids, taking care of your property. So you reach into the hopper and you could pull out an event. And let's say the first event is something that maybe not a lot of us would like. Let's say it's run a marathon. And what we do with the hopper is we then have, as many people as possible test that event. So everyone tests the marathon. Now, anyone who's been a marathon runner in the past is going to do really well at the marathon. My wife is going to do great at the marathon. Me, never run one, going to do pretty terrible. But what's important about the hopper is it's filled with an infinite number of tasks. So we're going to keep reaching in, we're going to keep pulling out tasks, and we're going to keep testing all of our athletes at different tasks. Now, it's our belief that the fittest athletes, the fittest athletes will perform better and better and better as we pull more tasks out of the hopper. Now, one of the big arguments, launched at CrossFit is that CrossFit, people have said CrossFit's never going to make you a world-class marathon runner, or CrossFit's never going to make you a world-class strongman or a world-class gymnastics athlete. And that's certainly true. That's never been our goal. Our goal is not to give you a 1,200 pound back squat, but our goal is to sort of really make you a generalist, make you good at everything, great at nothing, but also suck at nothing. It's this notion of we want to prepare ourselves regardless of what physical challenges we have to, confront throughout the day. We want to prepare ourselves to be ready for the unknown and the unknowable. And the hopper is an illustration of that. It's this enormous tank filled with an infinite amount of tasks, and we're going to keep pulling different tasks out. The idea is with CrossFit, you might see all of the tasks that come out of the hopper and think, well, I'm not going to be excellent at any of these, but I'm also not terrified of any of these. I can kind of do all of them a little bit. And that's really the idea with the way we train in CrossFit and the fitness that we're pursuing, is that idea of being just generally physically prepared for any event that could come out of the hopper.
Very good. Yeah, that was one of the things that attracted me to CrossFit, was realizing how bad I was at a lot of those different exercises. And when I went into CrossFit several years ago, I felt like I was in pretty good shape. I used to run some marathons, and I would sometimes do some weightlifting. I did the home workout P90X, a few times, and I thought, man, I'm really fit. I do all these things. And so I walked in the CrossFit gym. I felt like I had never worked out a day in my life. It was so humbling. And so I thought, if I am this bad at this, there's obviously some weaknesses there, which I need to address. And so that was kind of what attracted me to CrossFit. And now, years later, I'm still really bad at it. But I'm slowly getting better, as I do these different tasks. So.
Yeah, great. I can totally relate to that. I think what also is interesting about CrossFit is, before CrossFit, I was an athlete who and I think a lot of us fall into this bucket. I mean, I think you probably did too. It sounds like on a couple days of the week, I would do cardio. Mm-hmm. And then on a couple other days of the week, I would do weightlifting, but I would never combine those pieces. And I think CrossFit, in a really unique way, combines different training elements in a single workout. And it's really challenging. For some odd reason, it's like lifting weights and putting running right next to each other. Even though when they're exclusive, it's fine, but together they're a lot harder. And I know I joked about this with you at the seminar, but there's never a day where you beat CrossFit. I always thought, I was convinced that there'd be a day where I kind of finished the game. I got to level 99 and I finished it and I won. What I've noticed is the longer I've practiced the program and the more I've taught others in CrossFit, is that people just continue to get fitter. They continue to get better, whether it's fast or slow. And then as you get fitter, as you get better, the weights just become a little bit heavier and you get a little bit faster and you could do a little bit more reps. So yeah, it is this constant pursuit of just, chasing that ability, that work capacity, and that fitness.
Right. So obviously CrossFit's, pretty extreme. I've got some orthopedic buddies out there that say, I love CrossFit because it, keeps me in business.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people that, have this idea, everybody gets hurt in CrossFit, I'm not going to do CrossFit, because of that? What would you say to that?
Yeah. So, I've heard this for a long time. I think obviously I'm biased because I'm so involved with it, and I do love it so much. And it's something I've been doing for over a decade now. One of the first things I really talk to people about is just this notion that I think sometimes what's perceived in the media is not always what's actually going on. And really what I ask them is I say, hey, what is the lowest barrier of entry that you'd be willing to do in order to try it out? And typically people say something like, well, I would do it without weight. And I'm like, great, let's come in for a class. Let's do it without weight. Or they say something like, I would do it slowly. And I'm like, great, come on in. We'll do it slowly. And I think once you can get them into the gym and show them that, they start to see that our concept of intensity, which I think gets portrayed as toward that idea of CrossFit is extreme. We typically do things in the gym and we are looking to reduce the time when we do them. We are looking to, over time, increase the amount of load we lift. And I think that can just get conflated to this idea that we're chasing speed and we're chasing loading at all costs, which is not the case at all. And that things, like your desire to move slowly, or maybe the fact that you're a newer athlete or that you want to move lighter, those all factor into the application of the program. I mean, CrossFit, it's infinitely scalable. And I said this earlier on, I tell people, hey, it can be for everyone. It might, it's not going to be, it can be for anyone. It might not be for everyone. And another thing I do is I use just examples that I've seen in my coaching career. My mom, like I said, she's 60 now. She's been doing CrossFit for 6 years, started at 54. And this isn't a knock at my mom, but I don't think she was, she wasn't like Olympic level athlete caliber, genetics. I think she was, your average, mildly curious fitness enthusiast. She walked throughout her life. She was active. She did yoga. She's amazing at yoga. She's been doing yoga for over a decade. But when she came into CrossFit at her age of 54, she did move slower, and even moved slower sometimes than I wanted her to move. And she did focus more on the technical aspect of the lift. And still over time, she got better, and she found a way to apply the program that was right for her. And this is something we talk about constantly in CrossFit, is this notion of relative intensity. This idea that the real goal of the program is to help each and every athlete find a physiological tolerance and a psychological tolerance that is comfortable and acceptable for them, and help them as a coach move to it. If you go into a good CrossFit affiliate, what you'll notice is that we spend time warming up the body, simply just oiling the tissues and the joints, making them more pliable, getting them ready for full range of motion and movement. When you go into a good CrossFit gym, you're going to notice that the coach is going to help each athlete in that class identify what is the right loading, what is the right speed, what is the right modification option for them. And they're going to continually reinforce that throughout the workout. Anything, even good things, can be overdone and misused and misapplied. I just think the conception is that some people think that happens in CrossFit a lot more than it does. But the goal of our program, especially to maximize longevity and maximize long-term adherence to it, of course, safety is a part of what we do. And I think, the more I can explain that to people, and honestly, it just, if I can get them to take a class with me, they start to see all of that in a much more obvious way. But, if someone stumbles on something like the CrossFit Games online, where you're seeing the competitive window or the competitive field of CrossFit, that's very different than what goes on in the affiliate, in the same way that you watch an NFL game, you watch a college game, and you watch those athletes go at it. That's very different than playing pass in the backyard, with somebody, or playing a flag football game.
Sure.
And it's hard, I think, sometimes to judge a skill or judge a practice by its competitive expression. And I just think that happens a lot with CrossFit, that people think all we're doing inside the affiliate is trying to compete at CrossFit and go to the CrossFit Games. And that's just not really the case.
Okay. So, as a aging athlete myself, I mean, you don't feel like it's bad for your joints or anything like that, especially for those older people?
Yeah. No, I don't. I really, really don't. And I think it could be, But again, it's like, there's just such a long list of, and I could even just go through other fitness protocols where we could say that if misused. I think one of the most important things, for someone who wants to start CrossFit or try it for the first time is just for them to really consider, find an affiliate or a gym that they like the environment, they feel comfortable with, because it is a service business. I wouldn't go to a restaurant where I feel treated poorly and I hate the food. But I think you find a gym where you feel comfortable, you like the environment, you like the community. And then from there, I think it's really important for you just to move at loadings and move at speeds where you feel comfortable, where you feel confident. And I do go back to the idea that, if you can get up and out of a chair and if you can lay down on the ground and get back up, you're doing CrossFit movements. You're doing them slowly, you're doing them at a low loading, but you're doing a squat, you're doing a burpee. And, the best coaches and the best gyms that I've been in, and really CrossFit gyms all over the country, they're basically just teaching us how to do that stuff and slowly scale up from there. So I think that's a really important thing to remind people that, especially as you get older too, is just to listen to your body. And I think the wrong approach as we get older is this idea of, full range of motion and functional movement is something we should avoid. What changes as we get older is just how hard we go, how heavy we lift, how fast we move. And, and the drop off of that is not going to be precipitous. I think, you can really hold on to a lot of, your youthful fitness. And if you've never done fitness before and you start something like CrossFit, later in your years, and again, I just speak to what I know, my mom, she's told me at, 55, 56, 57, 58, she's the fittest she's ever been. That's a wild conception. And like I said, I really, I don't think she was like Olympic level athlete genetics. She was just consistent and patient and, just adhered to the program and listened to her coaches. Not me when I coached her, but she listened to most of the other coaches. So yeah, I don't see that there's like a CrossFit boogeyman that exists, especially as you get older. I really, like I said, I really believe the program can be applied to anyone at any age, and it can be applied successfully. What just changes is how quickly we move through it, and how aggressively or how patiently we attack goals.
Yeah, very good. So if somebody is interested in starting CrossFit, do they need a basic level of fitness, or can somebody that, we're coming up on the new year, and, people are going to have New Year's resolutions. I mean, if someone is overweight, hadn't been doing anything, can they jump right into CrossFit?
Yeah, so I really think so. They can. What I ask most people that come into my gym, regardless of fitness level, and I've had all walks of life walk into my gym, and it's one of the things I like most about CrossFit. If I was only training collegiate level athletes, I don't think I would be as happy as I am as a coach. But when someone first walks into my gym, what I usually tell them is, I ask them, are you comfortable with group classes? Because most CrossFit gyms, I imagine there are a couple exceptions out there, most CrossFit gyms have group classes, and that's how they run their classes. And I think not everyone is comfortable with that, especially if it's their first fitness experience. But also what most CrossFit gyms do is they run some sort of foundations program, or we call them a fundamentals, or what they call an on-ramp program. It's really just onboarding. And these on-ramp programs, some gyms run them one-on-one. So you can schedule one with a trainer, and you'll go through a certain amount of, you can go through, a handful of classes with a trainer one-on-one. And then once you finish that on-ramp program, then you'll matriculate into class. And like I said, I've had people who have come into my gym and they hey, I haven't worked out in X amount of years, or I've never worked out, or I've never done CrossFit before. And, like I said, good CrossFit affiliates, good trainers, their specialty is taking athletes of any walk of life, of any skill level, and helping them methodically and patiently, make their way through this program and through group classes. And that's really what our program is built for. scaling and modifications are built into what we do, and making sure that we give everyone the opportunity to pursue fitness in the way they want to is a part of what we do. So I know that's a big fear of a lot of people is, hey, I just, you know, I've never worked out before. I'm not fit enough to try CrossFit. And again, I just go back to that idea of if you can get out of your chair, you know, if you're going up and down stairs, if you're getting off the ground by, you know, you're fit enough to do CrossFit. Your version of CrossFit just might not look like someone who's a competitive CrossFitter's CrossFitter, or might not look like yours, Greg, or might not look like mine, but that's totally part of the program.
And do you recommend somebody doing CrossFit every day? Or I know when I do it, especially as I'm getting older, it seems to take me a couple of days to recover.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your recommendation on that?
Yeah. So a big part of what we talk about in CrossFit is making sure that we have recovered enough. So when we do go into the gym, we are ready for volume. We are ready for the intensity of the program. And understand too, that the CrossFit programming, it changes throughout the week. It's not the same 1 hour session every single time, or the same 20-minute workout every single time. Some workouts will be shorter. Some workouts will be longer. Some workouts will be focusing on a single movement. Some workouts will focus on multiple movements. Our base recommendation, you know, in CrossFit for our program, and this is after kind of years and years of looking at it, is typically about 3 days on and then 1 day of rest, and then repeating that pattern throughout the week. At an affiliate level, what I see is I see a mix of that, because I know everybody has wild schedules and different jobs and different time commitments that they can share with the gym. I think the best place to start is if you're looking to do it, is try to start with at least, you know, 2 days in a row, and then take 1 or 2 days off, 2 days in a row. I think that's a really good place to start, where you can feel comfortable to on-ramp into the program, but also you're going enough with a high enough frequency where you can start to see some results and changes. But our basic recommendation is 3 days on, 1 day off. I try, you know, talk to my athletes who are new. Hey, try 2 days and then take 1 to 2 days off, and then come back in, and we'll roll from there.
Okay. So is there anybody that you would not recommend trying CrossFit?
Well, like I said, you know, I do think it could be, you know, I do think it could be for anyone, but I don't think it's for everyone. If you just don't want to do it, you know, you know, in my experience, I've trained, and maybe this is what you're hinting at, I've trained a lot of people who fall into, like, you know, that exception to the rule bucket. You know, I've trained athletes who are in their 70s. I've trained athletes who can't squat. I've trained lifelong runners who have, you know, unbelievably poor mobility, you know, like just frozen shoulders and terrible thoracic mobility, can't get their arms over their head. I've trained athletes coming back from injury. And I haven't run into any one of those athletes where I've said, you know, I've trained athletes who, we worked with the Wounded Warrior Project, and you have veterans who have, you know, certain amputations of the limbs. I've trained athletes like that. So the point being is, you know, the program can truly be scaled and modified successfully and safely to just about anyone. I don't think I've really found an exception yet. And what I also tell new trainers who get worried about that, I said, hey, if you're worried about training somebody, have them ask their doctor. You know, it's okay to reach out to a doc and say, you know, let them know what they want to do and see what the doc says, and go by that advisement. But yeah, I haven't bumped into anyone in my experience where I said, well, you absolutely should not do it. I bumped into people who say, hey, I don't really like this style of training, or I don't really like group classes. And I think it is okay to say, all right, well, then maybe this isn't for you. And I'm much less righteous than I used to be. You know, I used to be the, if you're not doing CrossFit, you're doing it wrong kind of guy. I truly believe that if they're doing something, at least something to move their body, you know, throughout the day, that's a dedicated exercise piece. I think that's the biggest win you can get. My tool for doing that happens to be CrossFit, and I believe in it. I think it is excellent and really effective. But short answer is, yeah, I haven't bumped into anybody yet. But in that, you know, along those lines, we have made huge modifications for some people. You know, I have a fellow I train, and he has, you know, both knees are replaced. He's a full-time police officer, you know, former military, spent his life jumping out of planes. His body's really beat up. So we're just really smart about making sure the movements we do are pain-free range of motion. The loadings we use are pain-free range of motion. So it just is paying attention to those details and, you know, still just finding out how do we stay safe and still get some results.
Very good.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend? You know, you talked about recovery. What do you do maybe personally when you're recovering? And you don't have to get into a lot of nutrition because we could talk forever about that. But I mean, do you recommend stretching, yoga?
Yeah.
I mean,
my wife is a nutrition coach. So I just try and do whatever she tells me, though I will say my adherence is not perfect. So for me personally, as far as recovery is concerned, and I've learned a lot of this from my wife and a lot of this from my own experience in you know, doing CrossFit for over 10 years. I'm a keep it simple kind of guy. So I focus on those things that are direct in front of me and that I can control. From a recovery standpoint, I think if anything you can do to sleep more, sleep longer, improve the quality of your sleep, you know, darker rooms, quieter rooms, regular bedtimes, regular wake ups, anything you can do to improve sleep, I think is really crucial for recovery. I think another really important thing for recovery is to give yourself some time outside of the gym, you know, doing some low intensity physical activity that isn't necessarily gym related. You know, I will say quarantine, at least up, you know, here throughout the summer was really good for this, you know, just going on walks, hiking, just being out in the yard, doing yard work if possible, doing some very basic physical work around the house, whether you're cleaning things up or moving things around. I think that kind of stuff can be really good for recovery from the simple point of it gives you a chance to use the body that you've been building, but you know, the intensity, the strain is low enough so you're not beating yourself up. And I do think it's nice just psychologically, and I don't have any scientific evidence for this, but I feel better, you know, when I do those kind of tasks around the house. I think that can be really good for recovery. And it is, you do need to get out of the gym every once in a while. Like I said, the 3 days of work, 1 day of rest, it's, especially if you really like going to the gym, sometimes it's hard to do that, but your body will really benefit from, you know, those periods of rest and the improved pieces of sleep. The other thing that I would probably say, you know, and maybe this plays into a sustainability more than a recovery piece, is to try and remove processed foods or grain-based or, you know, highly refined foods as staples of your diet. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're always eating refined foods, or if that's the most common food item in your diet, I would just try and urge and push, you know, my athletes and people to start replacing those or increasing the amount of foods in your diet that are single ingredient foods. I know we touched on this at the seminar, they're perishable foods, and just start to look at those basic pieces there. And I know, because diet is a lifelong habit, a lot of that stuff can be really tough to change. But I think starting with those simple pieces there are just things that I really appreciate and really like.
Yeah, no, great advice. So if someone is, you know, they've driven by a CrossFit box, they've seen it, and I've had friends say, yeah, I've seen those. I've kind of thought about, you know, starting CrossFit. So a lot of people have kind of thought about it. I mean, what would you say to people out there that have maybe just thought about wanting to do CrossFit?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is, you know, you can hop on CrossFit.com and they have a really nice banner. It just says, if there's 3 buttons, how to start, or if you want to find a gym, or if you're interested in the education piece, find a course. What I would always tell people is, you know, first look for a gym location that is in your routine. It's in your habit. It's close to you. It's somewhere you drive by. It's somewhere where if you started going, it wouldn't detour your life to keep going there. Because I think it's like any new habit is much easier if you can tie it to a habit you're already doing. So if I'm already driving this way to work or from work, and there's this gym, that's a great place to start. It might not be the best gym for you or a gym you love, but in getting into that habit and sort of over that, you know, that uncomfortable feeling of like, I don't know, it's easier if it already fits in your lifestyle. So that would be the first thing I would do. The second thing is, I would encourage anyone just to reach out to the gym. Let them know you're new. everybody who's gone into a CrossFit gym at one point was a new CrossFit athlete. We've all gone through that process, and it doesn't matter what you've done in your past, physical or athletic accolades. We all went through that process of being new at a gym. And so I think reaching out and letting the gym owner know is a great place to start. CrossFit affiliate owners, gym owners, and coaches, they're very accustomed and they're very trained with working with brand new CrossFit athletes. It really is their bread and butter. So that can help you feel a little bit more comfortable, because then you can make that one-on-one connection. And like I said, CrossFit gyms are really used to it. They're used to that. Hey, I'm brand new, never done CrossFit before, nervous about it. Where do I start? And sending that email out, I think, can be fantastic. And if you're someone who's a little bit braver and just gung-ho and ready to rock, just roll in, find a coach, walk up to the front desk and address them the same way. Like you said earlier, I think there is kind of a perception of, hey, I need to be a certain level of fitness to do CrossFit. I kind of got to have a special rank before I go in and do it. And that's just not the case, and I'll say one more time, all of us at one point in time were brand new CrossFit athletes. So don't forget, that's where everybody in that gym started, and it's totally okay to be new.
Sure. Very good. Okay. Anything else you want to throw out there that I didn't ask you?
Yeah, on the recovery piece, and I don't do this well, I just wanted to mention, someone the other day was talking about recovery, and as I have gotten older, and seen, my mom really appreciates stretching. And like I said, she's over 12 years into practicing yoga. She's excellent at it. I think there's a reason, I always joke with people. I'm like, yoga, there's a reason yoga has been around for 2,000 years. I do think stretching, if you can find stretches you like to do, is a really nice way to treat your body. I know stretching's not super exciting. It's like you got to kind of do the unsexy to get sexy, but it's not super exciting, but it really is a nice way to treat your body. And if you can find a couple you like, I know it's not super exciting, but I think it can be really, really helpful. I've certainly found benefit from it, as I've gotten older and the longer I've trained. And I will say, my wife jokes, she's like, she's like, do you have a stretch for this? And I always give her like the same 3 stretches. I'm like a one-trick pony when it comes to stretching, but you know what? Those are the same 3 stretches I always do, and I always feel better when I do them. So yeah, I don't think stretching's a bad place to dive into as far as, taking care of yourself in recovery. But that's just a little non sequitur. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. My wife's always on me about stretching more, because I'm as stiff as a 2x4, and
Yeah.
I need to do it. But you're right. It's something most people don't like to do. It's just not very exciting.
Yeah.
But okay, well, very good. So I always end asking my guest to give us one health tip that can just make us healthier today. What would you say?
Yeah, the simplest health tip I would tell people to make them healthier today is just spend 5 minutes, 3 to 4 days a week practicing your squat. And this could be as simple as spending 5 minutes sitting down to a chair and standing back up. You don't have to count your reps. Just try to get, 5 minutes of consistent collected movement. If this is something you're really comfortable with, then you could practice freestanding, air squats, just getting your hip crease, trying to, like you were going to sit down to a low stool and standing back up. I think it's just giving yourself that little 5-minute window of, treating your body, kind of like your car, a little R&R for it, and giving it that dedicated exercise time, and reminding yourself it's okay to move and take care of yourself, I think is a really good place to start. I know, as entrenched as I am in fitness, I get so caught up in my everyday life that there are days where I'm like, I don't need to work out today, or I could skip working out today, or I'm busy. But I know every time, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 or 25 minutes, whenever I take some dedicated time to just focus on my body and exercise it, and it could be very simple, like I said, 5 minutes of just practicing squatting or sitting and standing from a chair, I feel better. I certainly feel better.
Yeah. Great advice. I was motivated to do that after the seminar. I haven't done it as like I wanted, but I was wanting to get a PVC pipe and just do the, a lot of the basic type movements. And so that's my goal going forward, is to do more of that kind of thing. So
yeah. And, and I think it's good to remember too, it's, you're with and in your body for a long time. And, it's easy to fall into this idea of with fitness or training or health that like, if I miss a step or I screw up or I miss a day, I'm starting over on the following day. And I think it's good to get out of that mindset and understand that like as long as you're, even if it's one step or one small step, as long as you're moving forward, you're still moving forward. And my wife said yesterday, we were talking about this, and she said to me, she said, hey, it's good to practice a good habit, even if you practice it poorly. It's better to practice that good habit poorly than not do it at all. And I really love that attitude when it comes to fitness. It's like not every workout is going to be your best workout you've ever had in your life. Not every nutrition day is your best nutrition day, but even if you can make one small good step forward, take 5 minutes out of the day and make a good step, then you have done something good and you're staying in that good habit. And that's what keeps us moving.
Very good. We didn't really get into the different types of CrossFit workouts as far as the girls that they call it.
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite CrossFit workout? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I do. I might, honestly, probably my favorite CrossFit workout is Cindy. And there are a lot of CrossFit workouts that there have names after girls' names: Cindy, Fran, Diane. And then there are also a lot of CrossFit workouts which are named after fallen servicemen and women. So there's what we call hero workouts. So you'll probably see those too. And then there are lots which don't have names. But Cindy, I really like. It's you work for 20 minutes, and in a 20-minute time period, you're going to try and work through 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, and you're going to try and go through that 5, 10, 15 rep scheme as many times as you can in that 20-minute time span. And the reason I like Cindy is because regardless of fitness level, if you're the fittest athlete in the world, Cindy's a challenging workout because you're probably going to accumulate a lot of reps and a lot of rounds. Also, what's really cool about Cindy is if you're brand new, the movements are simple enough, straightforward enough where it's still going to give you that same challenge. And I like the fact that, you can kind of see it applied in both ways. And the other thing I like about Cindy is you can almost do it anywhere. You can almost do that thing anywhere. If you can't do pull-ups, you could do something like a ring row or grab onto a railing and just pull your, almost like a bar row. So you could really just do that workout anywhere. It's 20 minutes long. There's some strength endurance, there's some cardio, and the simplicity of it and the challenge that comes out of it is a really nice pairing. So I would say, it's kind of like it's kind of the CrossFit gateway workout. But yeah, I really like Cindy.
Yeah, very good.
How about you?
Yeah, it's hard. What's that?
How about you?
Gosh, I don't like any of them. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, they're hard.
I get that.
I don't know that I have a favorite. I like more body weight stuff like that, just because I'm not a real strong guy. And so, when you start doing the weights and the thrusters and things like that, I'm just not very good at it. But I can do a lot of the body weight stuff and the pull-ups. And so, yep, things like that would probably be at the top of my list as well. So
yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So the other thing we didn't mention is, the length of some of these workouts. And as I've talked to people, I usually work out at lunch, and sometimes I'll come back from lunch and they're asking me about my workout, and I'm like, the workout was 6 minutes long, or 9 minutes long, and they're like, how do you get a good workout in 6 or 9 minutes? And I'm like, oh, you don't understand. I mean, we were laying out on the floor after this workout. Yeah. So I think a lot of people don't understand when you put that intensity piece in, how much work you can get done in a short amount of time. So, okay. Well, very good. Well, I think most of my listeners are local here in Oklahoma, but each and every week this podcast is growing. And so if there's some listeners up your way in Boston, how can they find your gym? Does it have a website?
Yeah. So happy to answer questions or just wax philosophical about CrossFit. So I can always be reached on Instagram, just my name, James Hobart. That's my Instagram handle, but my gym up in Boston is CrossFit One Nation Boston. Our website is CrossFit One Nation. If they want to just Google search that, it's a great place to start. And you know, like I said, I'm always happy to meet new faces and friends traveling around. So yeah,
Very good.
look forward to
And
seeing
if
some
you're, if
people in Boston.
yeah, and if you're local, you know, the gym I'm affiliated with is in Yukon, Oklahoma, and if it's Biff's CrossFit, you can find them at biffsfitness.com if it's just something you want to try out. So, well, James, appreciate your time and kind of
Absolutely.
discussing about CrossFit with us. So,
Yeah, Greg, like I said, wonderful to see you again. And yeah, I'm happy to share. So thank you very, very much.
okay. And thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you guys next time.